Aloha and welcome to Resist with Joy podcast, where we amplify the voices of everyday people and empower our listeners to engage, show up, and become the policy shapers of tomorrow. I'm Tina Marie.
And I'm Martina. So let's talk about the top of the mind news from last week. And I can't wait to talk to you, Tina Marie. Let's dive right into this. Okay, yeah. What's on top of your mind?
Top of my mind is that we had our president threaten genocide, which not okay. His exact words in the tweet that he mentioned was, "A whole civilization will die tonight." Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's pretty scary, and I know that a lot of people saw that around the world and were worried that, okay, what if he's going to come for our country next? And it just threw the entire world into a tailspin.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a president doesn't do that. As a president, you're just the head of state, or actually, you're about to be the executive of with the legislator and judicative, just to have run the government for us. That's all you're supposed to do. You have no permission from any of us, because we are the government, we the people, to threaten a whole civilization and then do it on a tweet or whatever it's called, this weird social media platform he created after he got kicked off of Twitter. And it really took quite a lot of, it was a real shock to me, I think around the world. But, that happened on Tuesday. And I'm actually still a little bit in recovery mode, trying to get my emotions to no, we have to keep fighting. I don't want to be defeated. But sometimes it takes several days to spin your head around this evil that's coming from the president.
Yeah, I mean, just for him to say things like that, I think that is intentional infliction of emotional distress. And I think we as the citizens should file a class action lawsuit against him, because it's messing with all of our daily lives. Because if he's going to threaten genocide for another country, he's going to do that to us too. It's very easy for him to turn around and do that to us too. Thankfully, though, he did taco out. Trump always chickens out. But at the same time, I think that he knew that if he did that, it would be catastrophic, not just for him, but also for the entire world. And that's not going to look good on his legacy. On the same token, I feel like just watching his behavior over the last decade, beyond that, and the way that he talks to people, I feel like he is itching for any reason to hit that nuclear button. He even, during his first term, was telling Kim Jong-un, "I have a bigger button than yours," or something of that nature. Mm-hmm. So I feel like he's just trying to find any reason to hit that button for real. Yeah, that's my opinion.
What I learned over all these years, just learning about why are we in this unsafe, unstable world. And don't get me wrong, a lot of things go wrong, but the stability of the world, it maybe 15 years ago, it's kind of started. I felt it just internally. I couldn't put a point to it, but it felt like it. But what I learned over all these years, it's the personalities. Everybody has a personality, and in some people it is through whatever reasons, trauma as a child and how their life goes. Malignant narcissism is being diagnosed by many professionals in the health space. And what a malignant narcissist is, that's what our president, I truly believe, is and has, or the personality that he exhibits every day. So it's it's sadism, it's paranoia, it's to the max narcissism, and sociopath, no emotions for someone else. And if I when I read these tweets and the desire to kill, to wipe out the civilization, only thing is he's living out his best fantasy of sadism, and we have to push against this. We have to teach more people that this is possible in humans. The worst of their characters come out and they live that. And I wish for a world where folks like this getting pushed to the side of society and are not the main characters of the lives we live. So
I totally agree with that. And I also I also wonder that, like, what if we do end up pushing that nuclear button? What's going to happen? Is it actually going to go off, or hopefully are we going to be saved by aliens and they're going to wipe it out?
Yeah, I lived through 1986, Chernobyl. What Chernobyl was actually a power plant, atomic nuclear power plant, and it sits in Ukraine. I'm not sure if most people know that, but and there was a meltdown, and so we in Europe, you could say we were far away from in Germany from Ukraine, but it's also close when the wind blows this radioactive material around. I remember, you couldn't.
We still can't go there, can we? Because it's still radioactive.
It's a closed space, lots of concrete poured on top of it.
Editor's note: Chernobyl is technically still radioactive. However, it is considered safe to visit. There are strict regulations on visitation, with official guides only. Around 200 people have returned to living in the outer exclusion zone. More information can be found in the show notes if you are interested. Now back to the show.
But it's such a big worry that during the war that's being messed with, and just so nuclear, as we maybe try to envision how it is if a nuclear bomb goes off. I mean, there has been nuclear bombs dropped by the Americans onto other countries, Hiroshima, Nagasaki. I think that was in the 50s. So it's all possible, We just all thought crazy people would not be in this space to have so much power, and we're really paying a price that this president is now in power with all his sycophants, and how the world really changes because people are in power.
And we can't expect other countries or other entities to come save us. We have to save ourselves when we have an authoritarian government. So it's up to us to make the change.
Yeah. And it ties into something we want to talk about next, but we have a couple more things. But we have to save ourselves, and we have the perfect example. The news came out 2 hours ago, but in Hungary, election was won by the opposition party, and that's a really big deal. But before we get there, I do want to talk about a little bit more about what happened with MAGA, because the Tuesday tweet caused even more of a rift of a lot of people that are on the right wing and radical right wing podcasts scene. And they're all speaking against the president now. So they're all like, this guy is crazy. I mean, if you say Marjorie Taylor Greene is saying this guy is insane, 25th Amendment.
Yep.
Whew, this is a big deal.
And just to prove that point a little bit further, even my 3-time voting MAGA family member, when I pointed out what Trump is doing, he said that to posture Trump was a warmonger in his first term is disingenuous and inauthentic. And he said to me, I will acknowledge that he is just now going off the rails. So in other words, they think that this is new behavior. And it's not fair for me to project foreknowledge of his current behavior because we had no hard evidence that this was to see this coming. So I think that, we want to think that they effed around and they found out, but they're finding out, but they're not making that connection that this is who he's always been. They think this is new behavior. So whatever is going on in the ethers here, the veil has been lifted. So people are seeing him for who he really is, but they don't make that connection that this is who he has always been. He's always been this way. So we have to keep that in mind when we're making these conversations. And I've even responded back to that family member, and I told them, Trump in his first term, he killed an Iranian general. He threw the mother of all bombs. He separated kids and put them in detention centers. And we still lost. We still cannot keep track of who they lost. They lost thousands of kids because they didn't keep track of them. So whenever Trump is presented with a peaceful option or the most aggressive option on how to respond to anything, he always chooses the path to the most aggression. So that says something about his character, and that is the furthest thing away from peace, in my opinion.
Yeah. Malignant narcissism, I'm a sadist, he as a personality, he likes when people suffer. That's what
Yes.
sadism is, right? I like it when people suffer. And it's for folks that saw it 10, 15 years ago, or maybe even the New Yorkers, they all say, hey, we knew this guy. You should never vote for him. They saw it early on. It's just a heartbreak that in your family, close family members have now now it's too much. Some kind of red line is crossed, but they still cannot make the connection we made years and years and
Right.
years ago. Yeah, I'm really sorry that because there's so much heartbreak that comes with this.
I've come to the point where I don't care about reconnecting with my family at this point, but I do still continue to engage because having those bits and nuggets of insight are helpful in how we shape our conversations. Because I came from the impression that, oh, they're going to see for who he really is and they're going to make that connection. But that conversation right there told me that they're not making that connection. So that can help us shape our future conversations with them.
Yep. Yeah, very helpful. I'm glad you explained that a little bit. And it happened so close to you. It's not someone else somewhere. It
Right.
is really close. I think there's 32 countries in the European Union. One of them is Hungary. And I think Orbán, the prime minister, was there since 2004. And he was voted out today by the opposition party. And what was needed to do that was, I think, more than 80% of voters turned out. Voter turnout was incredible. People were standing in line ready to vote. And what it all teaches us, actually, is for 16 years, Orbán has turned this democracy of Hungary. They had the constitution, and they had media and the judiciary and everything, but he turned it all upside down. And that's what the current regime here in the United States wants to do. First, they came for the media in Hungary and turned it to state media. You could not really get good information anymore, or it's all propagandized. And the second was then the judiciary, some laws that were just not enforced, or some weird laws were implemented. I think they changed the constitution. So it was hard to get out of this authoritarianism. And what we learned today, it is possible to vote out someone who is a dictator or who wants to be a dictator. And this is a real big day for that. We in the United States, we can do the same thing. Yeah, the only thing we really want people to do, go vote. Well, educate yourself, go vote, and then vote for the candidates that are really for a democratic government and that they serve you and not some kind of other entities.
While we still have elections, we can, in fact, vote our way out of this. That's the key takeaway here.
Yeah. But, voting is still possible. If you look at Russia, Putin is still being elected. The only thing is everything in the system is so rigged that he gets 95% of the vote. That means a lot of people probably don't go vote because they were excluded, maybe because they're women or they were convicts or whatever. They maybe create laws and say, no, you cannot vote. So then they rig the system so only certain people can vote. And of those, 95% say, hey, Putin. And then I'm like, no, bad. So Orbán's defeat today, and he already conceded, that's a really big deal in a democracy. You want to concede when you lose. Our current president didn't concede in 2021. He kept the big lie going, and we're still suffering because of it.
Yep.
All right. Whew. I'm getting a little bit flushed here because it's exciting.
While we're also talking on Europe, I do want to take a point of mention because of the fact that I did grow up with an Iranian stepfather. I did live in Iran for a couple of months, and I understand how disastrous that regime is. I know the Iranian regime is putting out those Lego videos that we all think are hilarious, but I'm going to make a small plea to everybody, and this is important. Zoom in. Please stop sharing them. Please stop talking about the Iranian regime in a positive light just because they're making funny videos against the person we hate. I know enemy of my enemy, blah, 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 something, something, but please stop sharing them. The Iranian regime does not need any excuse to be put into a positive light because they are still murdering people. And I'm saying this with every ounce of seriousness that I have. Stop sharing them. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't share them at all. You know, it's like, I don't even, they usually don't show up on my feed actually. And I'm really glad about that. So thank you for pointing it out. So do not share. Alrighty. What else happened this week? What's on top of your mind?
Lots of things happened. Melania. She's trying to
Who's that?
distance herself from the Epstein files, which does she not recall that we have access to pictures that were predating any access that we had to AI? Those pictures exist, and we all see you hugging and kissing him and being in acquaintance with Mr. Epstein. So I don't know what you're trying to hide, but
Well, what I learned this week, well, I learned it over time now because I tie in so much into independent media, and especially there's one reporter, journalist, or his name is Ben Marcellus. He's with the Midas Touch, and he's so good in explaining things. And it's about narrative shaping. You know, it looked like when she came out, was it Wednesday or Thursday? Unannounced, she does this press conference. And it's highly unusual to do a press conference in the White House and nobody knows about it. And the historian Heather Cox Richardson also mentioned a really weird thing is the way she walked out to the podium behind the president's seal. Nobody stands behind the president's seal, only the president, as awful as he is right now. And so, and then she was flanked by US flags. So this whole setup was the weirdest thing. But the way I understand it.
That's propaganda.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Yeah. And so what I understand is she wanted to get ahead of something. She wanted to shape the narrative. And I think it's almost, I don't want to say hilarious. It's because everything is so sad when I look at these people. But Epstein conversations had ebbed up, right? It was not much talked about because the war was so much more in the news. And she brought it back up. It's front and center again. And what she said was just ridiculous. Like you said, if you're in pictures, yeah, you were in his circles. You were buddies with him. You were buddies with Ghislaine Maxwell, his co-conspirator, right? So this class of women, I have no idea how they live their life. I mean, for me, it's just like a ice cold heart that what kind of emotions and thoughts she has. I can't follow that. So.
Yeah, there's no emotion behind her eyes. There's no like warmth. And I feel like she's void of being a human, like an empathetic human. There's just, you look in her eyes and there's no spark. So I really wonder like how far down the rabbit hole did they sell their soul just to be in a position of where they are? And I could never, like my whole being. There was once a time in my younger life where I was being told to admit to something I didn't do just so I can get something favorable. And I could not, for the life of me, I could not in my body admit to something I didn't do just to maintain whatever comfortability I had at the time. And I had to make a choice with myself. Can I live with myself if I lie about myself and degrade my integrity? Or am I just going to face the consequences of whatever the outcome of this is? And I'm happy I stuck to my guns. But at the same time, it just proves that I personally cannot do things that are outside of what I think is goodwill. So to see someone, a woman, just go and live the life and be married to someone like that, and I can see that it's probably taking a toll on her at some point because you can look in her eyes. There is no spark. There is no warmth. There's no genuine care. So it makes me feel a little bit of empathy for her, but at the same time, she chose this life.
Yeah. She could have left him many, many times over. You know. Yeah, it's a weird. Weird is not even the strongest word for this. It's definitely a group of people I would never want to be connected to. But somehow I have to deal with it because their husband is the president of United States, and it's like, yeah, empty. What I think of her is emptiness, you know. And we have only so many hours on the planet, so many days that we can live, and I just get a lot of joy because I can do a lot of things that have value and have there's depth to the work we do. What we're doing here right now, it's our second recording. And I still get really nervous before I get on the microphone, but I feel like it needs to be said. And I wish that our listeners can carry a little bit of the pieces that we share with them for a world we want to create.
What are some good news that we had today, this week?
I think we have two good news. And that
We
one
have a
ties
lot of good news
into,
this week. We have a lot of good news this week. And the one that I'm like super excited about that kind of put my faith into like the intelligence of our humanity is the Artemis ⅱ mission. I'm like so giddy. I was watching that. I often wonder like what it was like to live through the first moon landing. And I almost think that what I was feeling this entire past week and a half with the Artemis ⅱ and watching that, I feel like I felt a little taste of what that felt like. Because for the first time ever, we had 4 human beings fly on the backside of the moon. And the whole purpose of their mission was to get pictures and gather data about the structure of the backside of the moon, because we've never seen it, so that they can possibly put a moon base there and have people living there. So I just was so giddy watching the entire thing.
yeah, I believe it comes to a really good time to actually see incredible results because people work together. And I believe there were a lot of women also on the scientific side and in the where everything is being done. I don't have the word for this right now, but you know, the base on Earth, you know, it's like I think there were 3 men and 1 woman, but a lot of scientists were female, pushing, getting this off the ground and back, I guess, off the ground and back. You know, so I didn't watch it so much. And whenever I think of space, I appreciate the accomplishment. But all these years in being an environmentalist, you know, I always look around. Let's fix problems here first. That's kind of my approach. I could point out the moon to you, but that's about it. You have this beautiful sky in Hawaii all the time. You have these observatories, and people tell me, "Yeah, this is this one, this is this one," and 10 minutes later, I forgot what what the name of that star is. So yeah, but I do share the excitement, and it comes at the right time to show how we can, when we work together for the greater good, things can happen. Yeah, we can accomplish a lot. Yeah. I had some good news too. It ties a little bit back to Melania, but in Epstein. But you guys remember last time we had talked about the protests we had on March 20. We have many chapters with the Indivisible group around the islands, and one particular one is East Oahu. And they had this brilliant idea to, at their protest, to have a huge banner. I think it's at least 8 to 10 feet long banner. And they asked the protesters, hey, do you want to sign this banner? Just take a Sharpie and sign it. And then the banner actually says, Hawaii stands with the survivors. And here's a picture of it. So it's incredible to see that banner in itself. But what happened this week, the ACLU, the American Civil Liberties Union for Hawaii, they had a press conference, and Indivisible was there. Lisa Gibson is the lead there for the statewide network. And I think several other people too. And Jill Takuda, which is our congressional delegate or congresswoman for Congressional District 2. So she's actually mine and Tina Marie's person in Washington on the House of Representatives. She was at this press conference too. And what she's going to do, she takes this banner now to Washington, and she sees Epstein survivors regularly. And she wants to present it that Hawaii stands with them. And just talking about it, choking up a little bit, because just a signature at a protest, you know, how much it carries forward and will make an impact on other people.
And I feel like if a survivor sees that, I feel like they might feel a little bit of heart warmth about that, and seeing how we're all there in solidarity supporting them. And we know that being harassed even, or having a huge amount of trauma, it's really hard to talk about and come forward about, because number one, you're not believed and you have to present all this evidence. And number two, the people that perpetrate this kind of violence are hardly ever given any substantial consequences. So it's really hard to come forward, and they're very brave to share their stories and come forward. And I really admire them, and I want to thank them for doing so.
Yeah. Consider me signed the banner too. I'm absolutely on that team as well. I just thought when I saw that picture and the story behind it, absolutely positive news. We can make a difference. All right, and the last thing I wanted to talk or mention is something we have right now. The legislature is in session. That means in the Hawaii capital, bills are being put in or entered. Then is kind of a cutting. Some bills make it, some don't. I think 3,000 are going in, and then maybe 300 make it to actually then implement it. But there's a whole process, and it's quite the process with the House of Representatives and the Senate, and then they have to cross over, and then the hearings, all kinds of things. It's really interesting work. If you're interested, we can give you some tips how to learn more about it. But I'm going back to 2010. There was a Supreme Court decision, and it's called Citizen United, where it was decided by the Supreme Court that corporations are people. And because they're people or entities that can give money to the political process. And because of this Supreme Court decision, we have so much money at this point in our elections.
There's too much money in our elections. I try to think, every time I hear about a politician, gathering like 30,000, 40,000, 100,000, $1 million in campaign donations, I'm like, that is like enough money for me to live the entire rest of my life. Yeah. And a lot of these lower level politicians that make like 30, 40, 50,000 in their campaign, like that's an entire salary for somebody for an entire year. Yeah. And it just boggles my mind that there's so much money built into elections when I feel like we don't need to spend that much money on campaigning, because think about what you need. You need maybe a few yard signs, maybe some stickers and whatnot, and then the rest goes for mainly advertising and infrastructure. But we have the digital age. You can get your message out a lot better and a lot quicker by using the free tools that we have at our disposal, like social media, for example. Maybe buy a couple paper ads and buy a couple radio ads and then call it a day. I don't feel like we need to be spending this much money on campaigning. It just boggles my mind and it makes me sick.
You want to hear a shocker? In Germany, the system is completely different. You can only campaign for 6 weeks before the elections for the chancellor. Think of that. We have to endure all these years, all this campaigning, all this blah, blah, blah. I have to admit, much bigger country, more people, the message has to be continuously. But in Germany, you have 80 million people, and the laws are there that you can only do that for 6 weeks, and then you can plaster the billboards and do advertising on TV, but you will not be blasted like here, and where so much money is spent. But why do we talk about this? Oh, okay.
Yeah, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think, quote me if I'm wrong, but I think Canada also has a limit on how much they can campaign. I think it's like 3 months if I'm not mistaken. And I thought when I first heard that, I thought that was pretty awesome that they only need to endure campaigning for a couple months. Whereas here, we've been campaigning for midterms since the presidential election in 24.
That's right. Yeah, it's ridiculous. I really think that system is ridiculous. But it was all exaggerated because of Citizen United and the Supreme Court decision in 2010. And so for 16 years, we are being flooded, and we have to fight all this money coming in from really rich people, from the oligarchs, right? Why do I tell you all of this? So the legislature is in session, and there's actually a bill. It's called SB 2471, and we're going to list this also in our show notes. But Civil Beat put a really good summary out, and it's actually written by one of the Democratic House of Representatives for the state and a Republican. Their names are Della O. Bilatti and Kanana Souza. And what they're trying to do as the first state in the union, or actually many states are trying to do that on the state level, but Hawaii has been coming the furthest at this point. And I'm just going to read you a couple things. So Hawaii might just slay Citizen United, and you can help. We, as a state, have the authority and the responsibility to get rid of dark money. And then it goes on what the problem is and how we can change it. And the call to action is to put pressure on our state representatives, like our senators and House of Representatives, give them a call, say that you want dark money out of politics. And so if Hawaii can get this done, it would be an earthquake for the rest of the country, because we can put it on a state level, on every state level. And so to me, now tied into this, I always heard about Citizen United. I'm like, what a weird name. What does it mean, right? And then I learned about the Supreme Court decision. And then I learned about how you can fight it. And there's people fighting this for 16 years. And for the first time this year, Hawaii has come really far in putting this bill through the legislature. And now we're coming in a critical phase of maybe next 2 weeks, where we have to tell our representatives, put this in place. And so in Hawaii, the dark money is out of elections.
Yes. This is an amazing win, and we hope that, it get passed and we can be the pioneers of getting dark money out of our state elections. I think that would be amazing for Hawaii to be the pioneers for this.
Yes. We had one of the best presidents coming from Hawaii. We can little state, a few islands, so many people, but we have the heart with Aloha in the right place. That's what Aloha stands for.
One more piece of good news for my personal good news is I ran for re-election for co-chair of the Women's Caucus for my state, and I won my re-election. Granted, I ran unopposed, but still.
That's where the joy comes from, the laughing, right?
Yeah. But it's good because I get to serve for another 2 years, and we have 2 co-chairs and a treasurer and 2 SCC representatives. That's the State Central Committee representatives. And, not many people stepped up to the plate for leadership, but a few of us did. And now we are able to continue the caucus for the next couple of years and fighting in legislation for women's rights. And it's going to be amazing.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah, Tina Marie is definitely shaking it up within the Democratic Party. And I'm all for that. So keep going. Do what you do there. All right. Well, the wrap up is have a good week. I hope it's not so emotionally taxing because we have to just live our life anyway. But we hope you enjoy our conversation. We are really grateful for every listener, and make sure you like, subscribe. What else? Yeah,
push all the buttons.
Just push it. Check out the show notes where we have the resources about the Civil Beat article about SB 2471. It's a really big deal. And have a nice day, and aloha.
Aloha.